Robert Henderson's secretary was pregnant. He brought her home to the 9th anniversary celebration. He casually instructed me, Liv is picky about food, so meals from now on shouldn't be repetitive. She's timid and needs someone to sleep with her. Pack your things and move to the guest room. I didn't say anything. I picked up the bags I had already packed and walked calmly towards the main gate. The butler tried to stop me, but the man sneered, let her throw a tantrum. She'll come crawling back within 3 days anyway. Hearing this, everyone burst out laughing. They bet 10 million right in front of me. They bet I wouldn't last the night, but would come crying back like a lapdog, begging Robert Henderson to let me in. But they didn't know the Maybach he had arranged was already waiting outside. This time, I was truly leaving. Just as I was about to walk out the villa gate, Robert Henderson suddenly called out to me. Sarah, leave your family heirloom bracelet. Liv has been having nightmares lately. The bracelet was a bequest from my parents. Meaning my red-rimmed eyes, the man was utterly cold. Name your price. How much could a 9-year marriage, as humble as mud, be worth? I couldn't be bothered to calculate. All I knew was the last time I refused to give Olivia my goggles on the ski slope, the man stripped me naked and abandoned me halfway up the mountain. I took off the family heirloom bracelet and placed it on Olivia's hand. I said to Olivia, wishing the child in your belly peace and safety. Hearing this blessing, Robert Henderson, for the first time ever, gave me an opening. Sarah, as long as you're obedient, my child will be your child. As soon as the man finished speaking, the bracelet on Olivia's hand suddenly slipped off and shattered. Seeing Olivia's leg was cut, Robert Henderson carried her in a princess carry. He sternly ordered the butler to call the Priv. 8 physician. The man's anxious demeanor made everyone present look at me with amusement. In this situation, it wasn't just them who found it funny. Even I found it laughable. Last night, when I had a heart attack, Robert Henderson was about to go out with Olivia to watch meteor showers. Even when I foamed at the mouth and collapsed on the floor, the man stepped over me without batting an eye. Before losing consciousness, I heard him instruct the butler, have the entire living room disinfected. Liv is coming home tomorrow, and I won't let her smell any unpleasant odors. Clutching the handle of my luggage, I turned to leave, but the man grabbed my wrist with a cold face. Apologize. Wah. Before I could finish speaking, he had dragged me to kneel at Olivia's feet. My knee scraped against the fragments, staining the white floor red. Seeing the bloodstain, Robert Henderson let go, a look of disgust in his eyes. You deliberately broke Liv's bracelet and injured her. Shouldn't you say you're sorry to her? After marrying Robert Henderson, I'm sorry became my catchphrase. The soup was too bland, I'm sorry. Worried he was uncomfortable from drinking and bothering him with a message, I'm sorry. Accidentally seeing Olivia's message inviting him to a hotel, intruding on his privacy, I'm truly sorry. Biting the inside of my lip until it bled, I resignedly straightened up. After bowing deeply to Olivia and apologizing 3 times, I looked at Robert Henderson with indifference. I asked him softly, is that enough? Staring at the blood on my lips, the man's chest visibly rose and fell. Sarah, your grandfather, the one you rely on most, isn't here. Who are you putting on this disgusting display of pity for? Before I could reply, the private physician arrived in a hurry. Pushing me aside, Robert Henderson led the doctor to Olivia. While his eyes were solely focused on Olivia, I quickly walked out the main gate. As soon as I left the villa, I heard beep beep. 2 honks. Seeing the silver sedan outside the iron gate, I couldn't help but quicken my pace. However, before the iron gate could open, 2 bodyguards suddenly appeared and forcibly took me back to the villa. Inside the study, Robert Henderson tied me up tightly. He ordered someone to pierce my arm with a large gauge needle. Through the half-open door, I heard the doctor say to Robert Henderson, Mr. Henderson, while both your wife and Ms. Olivia have Rh-negative blood, your wife has a history of heart problems since childhood. Forcing a blood draw could easily trigger acute shock. I think it would be better to go to the hospital first for a blood transfusion for the anemic Ms. Olivia. No need to persuade me further. Robert Henderson said coldly, your only task is to ensure Liv recovers. As for the rest, I have it under control. Hearing Robert Henderson's approaching footsteps, I slowly closed my eyes. Does it hurt much? The man spoke in a rarely heard comforting tone. Just bear with it a little longer. It'll be over soon. I turned my head away, not wanting to waste words on him. After drawing 800 milliliters of venous blood, my lips were already purple. At this moment, Olivia, who was lying in the master bedroom, suddenly coughed. Hearing the sound, Robert Henderson immediately stopped the doctor from pulling out the needle and demanded he draw double the amount of blood. Sweating profusely, the doctor informed Robert Henderson that if he kept drawing blood like this, I would likely die. After hesitating for 2 seconds, the man simply said, "Liv is pregnant. Prioritize the pregnant woman above all else." But I interrupted the doctor's protest. "Draw it. Just let me leave after you're done." Looking at my bloodless face, Robert Henderson opened his mouth, his eyes full of cold fury. Just as he was about to demand if I was done throwing a tantrum and if I was really going to leave home over such a small matter, Olivia sweetly whimpered, "Darling Robert," and immediately captivated him. 2 days later, having been hospitalized due to shock, I opened my eyes to see Robert Henderson reviewing documents. Our eyes met for a long time. He impassively brought over a bowl of soup and made to feed me. But I shook my head. "I can manage." He watched quietly as I finished half the bowl of soup, then Robert Henderson asked, "Are you uncomfortable anywhere?" I answered irrelevantly, "Could you please give me my phone?" Perhaps my tone was too distant, as Robert Henderson froze for several seconds before contacting the butler to bring me my phone. Glancing at the many missed calls on my phone, Robert Henderson suddenly asked coldly, "Who was calling?" He hadn't used to ask so many questions. A flicker of annoyance crossed my eyes, and I simply said, "You don't know them." Undoing the top button of his shirt, Robert Henderson looked down at me with cold eyes. "Sarah, how long are you going to keep throwing a tantrum? Give you an inch and you take a mile, huh?" Before, when Robert Henderson was angry, I would examine myself while trying my best to appease him. But now, I simply pointed at his vibrating phone and told him impassively, "Olivia is calling you." Hearing this, a smile appeared in Robert Henderson's eyes. He habitually avoided me and went to the hospital corridor. As soon as the man left, my phone rang. I answered the call, and before I could speak, the person on the other end spoke anxiously. "Didn't you say you were coming to find me?" "Sadie, are you having second thoughts?" "No second thoughts, just ran into a bit of an accident." "Accident? What happened to you?" "No, I have to fly back myself." Interrupting their chattering on, I lowered my gaze and pressed my lips together. "Just give me a few more days." When Robert Henderson returned to the hospital room, I had just finished the call. Noticing the smile he hadn't seen in a long time lingering on my lips, the man felt a strange tightness in his chest. But he had just promised Olivia he'd go back immediately to sing lullabies for her and the baby. So there was no time to ask who I had been talking to. He likely assumed it was the cousin who often called me. After all, after marrying him, my social media feed only had female relatives left. Picking up the documents, Robert Henderson said coldly without looking back, "Sarah, something's come up at the office. I'll come back tomorrow." Tomorrow, the day after that, the man didn't appear. However, thanks to mutual friends, I kept receiving videos of him and Olivia. He took Olivia to parties, dinners. Like a lovesick young man, he was eager to introduce her to everyone. The day I was discharged, Robert Henderson posted a 9-picture post on his social media feed. As the sun set, he stood in a romantic hot air balloon, cupping Olivia's flushed face and kissing her passionately. I posted a comment, "Wishing you both happiness and a growing family." 10 minutes later, Robert Henderson called me. I didn't answer. Half an hour later, having completed the discharge procedures on my own, I saw Robert Henderson and Olivia at the entrance of the OBGYN department. I heard the young nurse at the reception desk say to Olivia, "Mrs. Henderson, your husband truly dotes on you. He's with you every time you come. He even warms the ultrasound gel himself before we're allowed to use it on you during scans, because he's afraid you might get cold." Hearing the nurse say this, the pregnant women around us were all filled with envy. Instinctively touching my abdomen, I remembered that a child had once been there. The day of the car accident. End in miscarriage due to blood loss. I cried in video called Robert Henderson. But I saw a naked Olivia instead. Mrs. Henderson, Robert lost a game to me, so he's tied to the bed receiving his punishment right now. Do you need him for something? I didn't say anything and hung up the video call immediately. Less than a minute later, Robert Henderson called back himself. With a teary-eyed and wronged Olivia in his arms, he cursed at me, calling me petty and utterly idiotic. He also said, "An idiotic fool like you, who can't even keep her own child, I truly wonder what you're capable of achieving. Sarah, you might as well just get hit by a truck and die." Recalling my thoughts, I was about to go around them, but Robert Henderson walked over with a cold face. "What are you just standing there for?" Lowering my gaze, I instinctively explained to him, "I wasn't following you. It was just a coincidence. Sorry to intrude." Wait. When Robert Henderson said this with a frown, a hint of jealousy flashed in Olivia's eyes. Tightening her hold on Robert Henderson's arm, Olivia smiled at me. "Mrs. Henderson, I'm especially grateful to you for donating blood for me. If it weren't for you, I'd still be dizzy right now. Darling Robert, please ask your wife to come home with us, okay?" Robert Henderson dotingly pinched Olivia's little nose. Whatever the kindest pregnant baby in the world says goes. Already planning to go back for my luggage, I didn't refuse Olivia's kindness. Inside the spacious black car, just as Olivia wanted, I quickly found a still damp pair of lace underwear in the gap between the seats. Oh dear, how is this still in the car? Darling Robert, didn't you tell me you'd already taken care of it? Biting her lip, Olivia snuggled into his embrace, coquettishly hitting his chest. Robert Henderson chuckled and apologized to Olivia, saying it was all his fault, while subtly observing my expression. When he realized I wasn't angry at all, the feeling of frustration from the hospital room that day inexplicably returned to his heart. "Sarah, you've been looking at your phone ever since you got in the car." The man's tone was unpleasant, like he was jealous. "Are you chatting with your cousin, or someone else I don't know?" Having booked my flight, I turned off my phone screen, just browsing the news. Hearing me say that, Robert Henderson's displeasure in his eyebrows became even more apparent. Taking advantage of my distraction, he snatched my phone. He asked me in a low voice what the password was. My birthday. 9 years of marriage. Such a simple 6-digit number. The man kept entering it until the phone displayed a locked screen, but he still couldn't open my phone as he wished. The journey was silent, and we arrived at our destination. As soon as the sedan stopped, Robert Henderson carefully helped the nauseous Olivia, who was suffering from morning sickness, to the master bedroom. Then he told the cook to make Olivia's favorite food. Going downstairs, the man saw my lonely back heading towards the guest room. After thinking for a moment, he said to the cook, "Make 2 more dishes that your wife usually eats. Prepare 3 place settings for dinner." Inside the guest room, I opened my luggage and was surprised to find all my clothes had been cut. Thankfully, the passport and other documents placed in the inner layer were undamaged. As I gathered my documents and prepared to leave, Olivia blocked the doorway. She held a black bottle in her hand, looking me up and down with disdain. "Sarah, I didn't expect you to be quite tolerant. Even after I walked right into your home and humiliated you, making you a laughingstock in the upper class, you're still clinging desperately to the Henderson family and refusing to leave." "That's right, that old hag from your mill. Lear family just died last month. With that major backer gone, you have no choice but to desperately cling to Robert as a lifesaver." Speaking of this, Olivia suddenly remembered something amusing. "Sarah, that day you cried and begged darling Robert to fly you to the hospital in a helicopter to see your grandma one last time, do you know why he refused? Because he had promised to take me to watch the sunset at the beach that day. Look, this kissing photo on my phone screen was taken then." With a smack, I knocked Olivia's phone out of her hand. I couldn't bear it anymore and grabbed her neck. The bottle in Olivia's hand slipped and fell, and I immediately smelled a pungent odor of gasoline. In the struggle, Olivia, in her frantic haste, ignited the gasoline on the floor. Thick smoke billowed, and the fire raged. Having just been discharged from the hospital, I quickly became weak from choking and collapsed to the ground. Then, I heard Robert Henderson's voice. "Sarah, Following closely were the servants' voices trying to stop him. Sir, it's too dangerous inside. You can't go in yet. Wait until security brings a fire extinguisher. Get out of the way. Sarah is still inside. The man ultimately disregarded the danger and rushed into the house. Only, he didn't expect Olivia was also inside. Darling Robert, help. Without waiting for Olivia to finish speaking, Robert Henderson picked her up without hesitation and left without even looking at me. Half an hour later. After comforting Olivia, the man searched the entire villa but couldn't find any trace of me. Late at night at the airport. Having sent the package, I coughed as I boarded the flight to England. Just before the plane was about to take off, I received a text message from Robert Henderson. I don't have time to play hide and seek with you. Olivia has a prenatal checkup at 10 tomorrow morning. You come along too, and get your loo. NGS checked. I didn't reply, removed the SIM card, and turned off my phone. Robert Henderson, from now on, you and I will never meet again. The next day, at the hospital. Darling Robert, is our baby okay? Meeting Olivia's pathetic, teary eyes, Robert Henderson immediately held her and replied softly, the doctor said the baby is very healthy and wasn't affected by yesterday's incident at all. Oh, that's wonderful. You've been looking so serious and quiet ever since you got to the hospital. I thought something was wrong with our baby. Olivia's unintentional words made the man freeze for a moment. The image of my indifferent gaze and the raging fire uncontrollably surfaced in his mind. Frowning, the man opened his phone messages again. He was annoyed that I hadn't replied to him, not even a single word, until now. Before, no matter how much he neglected me, I would always comply with his requests. Now, I had learned to put on airs. He scoffed inwardly. Robert Henderson carefully protected Olivia as he walked out of the OBGYN department, accompanied her for lunch, safely sent her home, and then went to the office. As soon as the man entered his office, he heard a male subordinate report that Grandpa Henderson had returned to the country and had summoned all management to conference room number 1 for a meeting immediately. Hearing this, Robert Henderson turned and walked towards the conference room, while casually instructing the subordinate, buy a few of the latest designer bags and popular jewelry for me. The subordinate immediately said, yes, Mr. Henderson. I'll arrange for someone to buy them right away and have them delivered directly to Ms. Olivia's residence. Robert Henderson stopped, pinched the bridge of his nose, and said, send them to Miller Estate. In his opinion, after leaving the villa, I couldn't possibly have anywhere else to stay besides Miller Estate. 1 week later, late at night. Robert Henderson, finally finished with his project, returned home to see a graceful figure in a silk nightgown curled up like a shrimp on the living room sofa. Sarah, how many times have I told you? I'll come home naturally when I'm done working, you don't have to always. He walked closer and saw the woman on the sofa was Olivia. Robert Henderson's mocking complaints stopped abruptly. Stared at coldly by the man without blinking. Olivia couldn't help but shiver. Her expression was both wronged and pitiful. Darling Robert, your wife hasn't come back these past few days. I've sent her so many apology messages, but she's ignored them all. Otherwise, maybe I should just move out. Seeing Olivia about to cry at any moment, Robert Henderson frowned slightly and held her. He gave her a perfunctory kiss on the forehead and told her to take care of herself and not overthink things. Whether Sarah accepts it or not, this is your and the baby's home from now on. Half an hour after saying this promise, Robert Henderson, dressed in a bathrobe, stood alone on the open-air balcony, smoking a cigarette. He had quit smoking for quite a while, but for some reason, he couldn't resist tonight. He compulsively scrolled through his phone and found my phone number at the bottom of his contact list. His thumb hovered over the dial button for a long time. After finishing 2 cigarettes, the man didn't choose to make the call, but instead sent a warning message. Sarah, tomorrow is Grandpa's 80th birthday celebration. I advise you not to cause trouble at the birthday gala and stir up problems for Liv and the child in her belly. On the day of Grandpa Henderson's birthday celebration, Robert Henderson and Olivia made a high-profile appearance, looking like a close couple. It wasn't until Grandpa Henderson himself entered that Robert Henderson released Olivia's hand and walked to Grandpa Henderson's side to help greet important guests. Why didn't Sadie come with you? Facing Grandpa Henderson's pointed question, the man pressed his thin lips together and, unusually, defended me. I'm sorry, Grandpa. Sarah has been busy preparing the gift these past few days. I saw she was too tired, so I let her rest for a while and she'll come later. 2 hours quickly passed. The birthday celebration had reached the highlight, the gift-giving segment, but I still hadn't appeared. Suppressed the growing unease in his heart. Robert Henderson walked to a corner, took out his phone, and dialed my number. Hello, the number you dialed. He kept redialing relentlessly, but still only got a mechanical busy signal. At this moment, a delivery person walked into the banquet hall. He delivered the 3 gifts I had sent. Met with curious stares, Grandpa Henderson smiled warmly and opened the first gift. Inside was a beautifully embroidered tapestry depicting a celebratory scene, vividly rendered. It was obvious I had spent months meticulously embroidering it by hand. Moved by the gift, Grandpa Henderson, his eyes filled with tears, opened the second gift. Inside was the heirloom jewelry given to me by Grandma Henderson when I married Robert Henderson. The moment the jewelry was seen, the entire hall fell silent. In the upper-class elite circles, everyone knew what it meant for a woman to return heirloom jewels. Before Grandpa Henderson recovered his senses, Robert Henderson, his face as black as coal, clenched his fists and walked to the third gift. Just as I had anticipated, the man, his face as cold as ice, personally unveiled the last gift I had prepared. The box was large, but the contents were pitifully few. Only a copy of the divorce papers and a medical report. Robert Henderson froze. Divorce? I actually wanted to divorce him? How was this possible? Seeing what was written on the medical report, Grandpa Henderson slapped Robert Henderson hard in front of everyone. You beast. Look what you've done. If I had known this, I never should have let you marry Sarah. You've ruined her life, Robert Henderson. Seeing Grandpa Henderson almost faint with anger, the Henderson family quickly helped him away. After everyone else tactfully left, Robert Henderson remained standing there, staring motionlessly at the divorce papers in his hand. After an unknown length of time, he impassively ripped the papers into pieces. Ignoring Olivia calling out behind him, he took the keys from the chauffeur and drove himself to Miller Estate. Unfortunately, the old estate was completely dark inside and out. Rolling down the car window, he stayed by the courtyard gate, smoking cigarettes all night, until his throat was swollen and his voice hoarse, but Robert Henderson still couldn't see any lights turn on. It wasn't until the 5th day after the birthday gala that he found out I had left the country. Why leave the country? Did I really not want to see him that much? He had only made a mistake that every man in the world makes. Why should Sarah Miller say she wouldn't see him and divorce him just like that? He didn't agree. He wouldn't allow it. After spending considerable effort to find out my specific location, Robert Henderson immediately booked the fastest flight available. He didn't even go home or pack luggage, but went directly from the office to the airport. As he was about to check in, a teary-eyed Olivia found him. Darling Robert, are you abandoning me and the baby? Glancing at the woman's slightly bulging belly, Robert Henderson patted her head and said, I've already had Assistant Chin arrange a new place for you. You'll move today. Hearing this, Olivia's tears instantly flowed uncontrollably. As long as I can be with you, I'm willing to live anywhere, even a garbage dump. But our baby is innocent, duh. Ruling Robert. If Sarah truly loved you, she should treat our child as her own, instead of deliberately ruining Grandpa's birthday celebration and making you and the Henderson family look so bad in front of outsiders. Someone like her. Before Olivia could finish venting her resentment, the man, with a cold expression, couldn't help but interrupt her. What right do you have to judge my wife? Olivia, I thought you were sensible. But it seems you haven't figured out your place. Taking the boarding pass handed to him by the staff, Robert Henderson looked down at Olivia with extreme coldness and said to her, No matter how many children I have outside, Sarah will always be my only wife. Also, you must take all your things when you leave the villa. I don't want Sarah to get upset with me again when she comes back and sees anything related to you. Olivia stood frozen for a while, her face streaming with tears, then she cried out and laughed at the man's retreating back. Ha, Robert Henderson, I didn't expect you to be even more naive than I am. You've hurt Sarah so deeply, how could she possibly come back? They say women understand women best, but Robert Henderson, who strode away quickly, completely ignored Olivia's words. He understood his wife. For these 9 years, no matter how angry Sarah got with him, as long as he sincerely apologized and bought her some gifts she liked, he could quickly coax her out of her anger. But then again, this time, Sarah was so angry she had even printed out divorce papers. Simply buying some regular gifts definitely wouldn't be enough. After much thought, as soon as Robert Henderson got off the plane, he found a local tattoo parlor. He took out a design I had sent him 5 years ago and told the tattoo artist, "I'm in a hurry. Don't use anesthetic." 7 hours later, Robert Henderson walked quickly out of the tattoo parlor wearing a blood-stained white shirt. He bought gifts worth tens of millions and nearly 1,000 pure white roses. Robert Henderson, who hadn't closed his eyes for nearly 48 hours, drove tirelessly to a vineyard estate located in the suburbs of London. On the highway, he nervously and excitedly rehearsed the perfectly designed apology process in his mind over and over again. However, no matter how he rehearsed, the first thing he said to me was always that heartfelt phrase, "Sarah, I've missed you so much." Finally, Robert Henderson found me in a foreign country. But the flowers in his hand suddenly dropped the moment he saw me. As the setting sun cast long shadows, I was being held in the arms of a tall, handsome man. With a look of contentment he had never seen on my face, I was playfully feeding sweet and sour fresh grapes to that man, and he was feeding me. Robert Henderson couldn't say that phrase, "I've missed you so much." He just foolishly asked me, "Who is he?" Sensing my body stiffen slightly, Daniel silently tightened his embrace. "You must be Robert Henderson? I've seen your wedding photo with Sadie. TSK, I didn't expect you to be uglier in person than in the picture." Seeing that Daniel's words had made me less tense and I covered my mouth and laughed softly, Robert Henderson felt as if someone had punched him hard in the chest. He instinctively clenched his fists until his fingernails pierced his palms. "Since you've come all this way, I'll politely introduce myself. I'm Daniel, Sadie's." "Daniel? Then I know. You're the chauffeur's son adopted by the Miller family. The ungrateful opportunist who was kicked out of the Miller family by Sarah Miller's grandma for being dishonest." Daniel raised an eyebrow indifferently, not easily provoked by Robert Henderson. But I frowned protectively. "Robert Henderson, Daniel isn't like that. Besides, why are you here? Trespassing on private property without permission is illegal." Hearing that I was trying to drive him away, Robert Henderson's face became exceptionally grim. For a moment, he completely forgot he was here to coax me home, not to argue with me. "Sarah, I've come to find you myself. Please stop throwing a childish tantrum and just come home with me obediently." "Home?" I looked at Robert Henderson as if he were an idiot. I asked him, "Did you get into a car accident and hit your head? I've already divorced you. Didn't you see the divorce papers signed with my name?" While the chance of the package being lost was small, it wasn't impossible. Just as I was thinking of printing out another copy of the divorce agreement for the man to take, I heard him say arrogantly in a low voice, "Those absurd divorce papers were torn into pieces by me a long time ago." "Sarah, I know what you're angry about. I've already handled the matter with Olivia, and I can assure you, she will never be an eyesore to you again from now on." Robert Henderson eagerly walked closer to me, raising his hand to touch the face he had longed for day and night. However, before he could touch me, I pushed him away first. My tone was very calm. "Mr. Henderson, when the Miller family was in trouble, only the Henderson family extended a helping hand. For the 9 years I was married to you, I've been trying my best to repay that kindness. Now that Olivia is carrying your child, the Henderson family finally has an heir. I sincerely wish your family of 3 eternal happiness and safety." With things said so clearly, how could Robert Henderson, as smart as he was, not understand that I was determined to leave him? At this moment, the man completely panicked. "Honey, why would you say something like that? Was being with me for these 9 years just about repaying a debt? Do you think I'd believe such a clumsy lie?" No, of course, he wouldn't believe it. If I didn't love him, why would I ask him to kiss my cheek before leaving the house every day? And why, when he was sick and undergoing surgery, would I cry my eyes swollen like walnuts, staying outside the operating room like an idiot, refusing to leave no matter who tried to persuade me? I clearly loved him so much. Loved him so much that anyone with eyes could see how deeply in love I was with him. But what had he done? The more obedient and tolerant I was with eyes full of love, the more recklessly he trampled on my personal dignity. He forgot that people have feelings. Too much pain leads to numbness. Gradually, one won't willingly degrade themselves and waste their emotions anymore. Forcing out a smile uglier than a cry, Robert Henderson stared at me with red-rimmed eyes. Sarah, I truly didn't know Olivia's existence would make you so sad. She and I, it was just a one-night stand after drinking too much. Bringing her home was just out of a sense of moral responsibility. After she gives birth, I'll have her leave the country, all right? I shook my head firmly. Robert Henderson, I don't care about your relationship with Olivia. You just need to know that I have a new life here and it's impossible for me to go back with you, so you should leave now. What new life? You. Overwhelmed by anger, having not slept for 2 days, and having lost a lot of blood from the tattoo, Robert Henderson felt dizzy before he could finish speaking and suddenly fell into darkness. When he woke up again, it was already 11 at night. Seeing a glass of water brought by a servant on the bedside table, Robert Henderson, who had misunderstood, couldn't hide his joy as he got out of the room, enduring his physical discomfort to find me. But when he reached the rooftop terrace, drenched in cold sweat, by way of the spiral staircase, what came into view was the scene of passionate kissing between Daniel and me. His heart suddenly tightened and a sharp "Ein" shot through him. Robert Henderson, his thin lips pale, rushed forward and grabbed Daniel's collar, questioning him through clenched teeth. What are you doing to Sarah? At this point, Robert Henderson could no longer deceive himself into thinking of Daniel as just my nominal childhood friend. Who gave you permission to touch my wife? Daniel laughed at him. Your wife? Robert Henderson, did you truly cherish Sadie as your wife? You. Before Robert Henderson could make another move, Daniel, who was hot-tempered, punched Robert Henderson squarely in the left cheek. Hey, Henderson, if Sadie wasn't kind, I would have thrown you out of this estate to be fed to the wolves a long time ago, you pathetic excuse for a man. Let me tell you, Sadie is my fiancée now. No matter how shamelessly you harass her, she won't give you another look. Hearing this, Robert Henderson dropped his fist, which had been poised to strike back, in a daze. He looked at me in disbelief. Is he telling the truth? Sarah, we've only been separated for less than a month, and you've already accepted someone else's proposal? I didn't tell Robert Henderson that the day I found out Olivia was pregnant, I had already accepted the solemn proposal from Daniel, who had admired me since childhood, via video call across the ocean. I just leaned lazily against Daniel's broad shoulder and hummed a non-committal with a half-smile. Robert Henderson trembled, looking absurd. Sarah, are you crazy? You're my wife. I never agreed to a divorce, yet you immediately got involved with another man. How dare you do this to me? Why wouldn't I dare? I tilted my head slightly and blinked leisurely. Is your permission something important to me? Robert Henderson, you think too highly of yourself. I'll tell you one last time, you mean nothing to me. You and I, it's truly over. With that, ignoring the instantly devastated Robert Henderson, I laced my fingers with Daniel's and turned back to continue watching the moon and chatting. No one knew when Robert Henderson left the estate, and no one cared. But he didn't return to the country. Instead, he bought a high-rise building near the estate that overlooked the vineyard. His daily schedule, besides remote video conferences with management back home, consisted of driving to the estate's iron gate, bringing different flowers or gifts I had mentioned to him before but he never gave me, and waiting for me to appear. I neither acknowledged him nor changed my plans to accommodate him. 9 years of utterly humiliating and mismatched marriage had taught me one thing. A woman should never change her life's direction to accommodate a man. Work when you should work, socialize when you should socialize. The world is vast, and my only priority is my own happiness. As for Robert Henderson, I thought he was clinging to me because Grandpa Henderson was reluctant to let me go and had repeatedly ordered him to seek my forgiveness. So I personally called Grandpa Henderson and informed him that I had a fiancé and a new life, asking him not to force Robert Henderson to stay in England, making futile efforts out of concern for me. However, for a full month after I made that call, Robert Henderson unexpectedly continued to wait at the estate gate, just to catch a glimpse of me from afar through the car window. The first person to lose patience was Daniel. Late that night, Daniel and I had just returned from a party when we saw Robert Henderson standing under a street lamp, holding the same white roses. As soon as I stepped out of the car, a spectacular fireworks display suddenly lit up the sky behind me. Daniel had masochistically watched the video of Robert Henderson proposing to me countless times. Back then, the young and naive me was dazed by the spectacular fireworks and happily accepted Robert Henderson's proposal. Now, seeing that I was captivated by the fireworks, Daniel, who already lacked security, finally couldn't help but rush to Robert Henderson and locked in a fierce struggle with him, full of resentment. Robert Henderson, you shameless homewrecker. All you think about is trying to make my fiancé look at you. I've never seen such a pathetic leech in my 30-plus years. If I'm a leech, what are you? Sarah and I have been together for 9 whole years. If she hadn't lost her ability to have children in that car accident, I never would have agreed to let Olivia have the baby. Let me tell you, Sarah is just misunderstanding me right now, thinking I really cheated and don't love her, which is why she's reluctantly accepting you, her perpetual backup. Once I coax her out of her anger, she'll immediately break off the engagement with you and return to my embrace. Hearing this, Daniel laughed coldly in anger and punched Robert Henderson, knocking him to the ground. When I lost my child in the car accident, it was Daniel who dropped everything and came directly to me, staying by my side day and night until I recovered and was discharged. Meanwhile, Robert Henderson used work as an excuse, but actually bought 2 tickets to Prague and went enjoying themselves with Olivia, visiting every tourist spot. No matter how much I tried to stop them, the 2 men were still locked in a fierce struggle when 2 police officers happened to drive by. One of the police officers exchanged a look with Robert Henderson, then immediately got out of the car, broke up the fight, and took all 3 of us to the nearest hospital without a word. Upon arriving at the hospital, I, who had been focused on Daniel, was instead pushed into Robert Henderson's hospital room. At this moment, I finally understood that everything tonight was a trap he set. And he went to such great lengths to put on this act just to have time alone with me. I asked him, finding it absurd, is it worth it? Robert Henderson, who had 2 broken ribs, gave me an embarrassed smile, his eyes red-rimmed. Then, in a hoarse voice, he said to me word for word, Sarah, I've missed you so much. I've missed you so much I feel like I'm going crazy. When the doctor came in to treat Robert Henderson's injuries, I saw the tattoo on his chest. Sun, moon, stars. This was a family of 3 design I had personally created when I was first pregnant. I remembered Robert Henderson's simple comment on this design, moon? You think you're worthy of that? Inside the hospital room, while Daniel was being kept away, Robert Henderson walked up to me, gripping my wrist tightly and refusing to let go. Sarah, I want to apologize to you personally. I'm sorry, honey, it's all my fault. I'll do my best to make amends, I just beg for your forgiveness. Before I could speak, his phone rang at just the right moment. It was Olivia calling. As he answered the call, Robert Henderson opened the speakerphone without hesitation. Darling Robert. Help, darling Robert. Assistant Chen suddenly broke into the apartment with several people. They took me to the hospital. The baby, they want to get rid of our baby. Listening to Olivia's heartbreaking plea for help, Robert Henderson didn't even frown. He just kept smiling at me. Olivia, I already know you drugged me that day. This child absolutely cannot be kept. Also, I've had someone delete the rumor posts you hired internet trolls to publish online about the Henderson Group's wife being infertile. The price for spreading rumors about my wife is that the doctor won't give you anesthetic during the surgery later, and from now on, you will never be able to have children again. Her breathing stopped for a few seconds. Olivia, crying so hard she could barely catch her breath, began begging frantically through the phone, stammering, Mr. Henderson. Mr. Henders. I was just momentarily possessed by evil. I didn't mean to. You can punish me however you want. I beg you, please, spare our child. Mr. Hend. H. Hearing Olivia's sudden terrifying scream, I instinctively frowned and blinked. Seeing the strange expression on my face, Robert Henderson immediately hung up the phone. Taking my hand and carefully placing it on his cheek, Robert Henderson, his face exceptionally pale, looked at me with deep affection and said, "Sarah, I'll have them send the surgery video later. After you've seen it with your own eyes, can you forgive me just a little? Even just a little would be good." I pulled my hand away, which felt soiled, and looked at the man who instantly looked crestfallen. I suggested coolly, "The psychiatry department at this hospital is very famous. You should go see a psychiatrist right away." Robert Henderson gave me a weak smile. "Okay, I'll do whatever you say." Robert Henderson thought that over these 9 years, the things he owed me were simply countless. But it didn't matter. Having realized his mistake, he would absolutely spend the rest of his life trying his best to make amends for everything he had done wrong. Just 3 days after he held this thought, Daniel and I held a grand wedding. When Robert Henderson heard the news and came driving recklessly to the venue, the gray-haired pastor had just finished reading the wedding vows. Robert Henderson personally heard me, in my pure white wedding dress, smiling sweetly and saying those 3 words to Daniel, "I do." "No, Sarah, you can't marry him." His heart felt numb and sharply painful, his body collapsing as if electrocuted onto the vibrant red carpet. Mr. Henderson, who was usually cold and reserved, was now like a homeless dog drenched by a downpour. Kneeling, his voice incredibly hoarse, he pleaded with me, "Honey, we're not getting divorced. I never thought about divorcing you. I beg you. Don't marry another man." With undisguised disgust in my eyes, I looked down at him and said, "Robert Henderson, out of respect for the wedding gift Grandpa Henderson sent me, I can forgive your unreasonable behavior in disrupting my wedding. But my wedding to Daniel doesn't welcome you. Get lost." Hearing such cruel words, Robert Henderson's tears finally flowed uncontrollably. "Sarah, I truly know I was wrong. If you're willing to give me one last chance, I swear I'll change. I can't accept a life without you. Ever since you left, I've thought about you every day, and even in my dreams, it's all the good things you used to do for me. Sarah, I love you. I love you more than anyone else." Heartbreakingly declaring his overwhelming love regardless of consequences, shouting it out in public. Robert Henderson was so emotional that the veins on his forehead were bulging. He tore open his black shirt, pointed to the still bleeding moon tattoo, and said with eyes blazing, "You are my moon, honey. I'll give you anything you want. I just beg you, don't abandon me." Pfft, seeing that I wasn't moved at all and even covered my mouth and laughed, Robert Henderson was completely stunned. I met his devastated eyes and said calmly, "Robert Henderson, I already have someone who truly loves me, and whom I love in return. He is my husband, Daniel. As for you, even if every other man in the world died, I still wouldn't be with you." Watching me happily accept Daniel, whose ear tips were red, as he firmly placed the 9-carat diamond ring on my ring finger, Robert Henderson felt as if all the blood in his body had turned to ice. As I held Daniel's hand and walked past Robert Henderson, letting Daniel carry me in a princess carry towards the honeymoon car outside the chapel, my face full of happiness, Robert Henderson, left behind, suddenly did something terrifying that no one had expected. He grabbed the cake and roared at me, his eyes filled with blood and tears, "You're just afraid of being hurt again. But it's all right, I'll show you my true heart right now." Stabbing the long knife fiercely into his chest, Robert Henderson was instantly in unbearable pain and trembling all over. "Look, Sarah, my heart, my heart. My heart is loving you every moment. Sarah, I beg you to turn back, look at my true heart one last time." Robert Henderson's utterly humble scream and wail reached my ears. Without looking back, I cuddled up to Daniel, smiling sweetly and acting coy. "Husband, this crazy person is terrifying, quickly take me away." Daniel strode out of the chapel and gently placed me in the passenger seat of the sports car. "Wife, let's elope." "Okay." My eyes curving into a smile, I leaned comfortably against Daniel's shoulder, letting him step on the gas, driving me towards true happiness.